Alright, everybody, welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live for the week of December 17th, 2017. I hope you've paid attention that there is unfortunately no one in my corner over there. Rob sent me a message last night saying that he's not feeling too well and couldn't make it for today's stream, which also means he's not going to be able to make it for our Sunday night Grim Dawn co-op play. So, I'll be moving things around in terms of streaming, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Hey, El Gordo, thanks for coming on. I sent out a few messages to people, including other Josh, to see if anyone could be emergency relief co-host, and sadly no one got back to me. I'm hoping maybe someone will pop up on Skype or Discord in a few minutes and we'll get a really emergency co-host. But it's looking like for right now it's just going to be me, which means we'll be doing things fairly quickly for today, because it's always hard to carry a conversation by yourself, no matter how active the chat gets. So, in terms of things that have been going on this past week, unfortunately, well, I guess the good news is that Patreon has rescinded their changes to the fee structure. Again, if you missed last week's discussion, what they were planning on doing was taking the transaction fees and putting them on the patrons instead of on the patrons themselves. So if you were to donate money, you would be charged more per donation. Of course, after everyone and their mother yelled at them for it, oh, hey Mike too, or XP, unfortunately, or I should say fortunately regarding Patreon, they decided to go away from that. The bad news, though, we did lose a few patrons in the process, so hopefully they'll come back, or we'll get a few new ones over the next few weeks. In terms of subscriber count, though, things have been fairly good. I know we've just gone over the 2,500 mark. We are now staying at 2,546. So unless something big happens in the next 2 weeks, I doubt we're going to hit 3,000 by the end of the year. But it's been a pretty good time for growth nonetheless. If you missed last night's grab bag, those videos will be going up over the next few days. And I finally beat Shadowhand. I think that was Thursday night. And that post has gone up for those of you watching this live today. And for those of you watching this recorded, it will be a few days in the past. Now, some other news in terms of what's going to be happening this week. I have one more day on my temporary job, at least for right now, and then I'm back to looking for more work. I've prepared 2 of the 6 podcasts for the radio show that's starting in January. I'm going to take the one I just posted of Ramin, where we talked about the history of monetization. I'm going to be trying to get that edited down to be number 3. So I just need 3 more to go for. But that's going to be fairly exciting in January, and then come springtime, I'm going to be looking into doing more of my actual live presentations. Also, yesterday I started playing SimCity 2013 for the Games of Ill Repute analysis, and if you guys like that, what I'm thinking about doing is maybe making that a permanent goal if we keep to $100 on patreon.com/gwbicer, because again, we dropped underneath it due to the issues. But if people like having me look at a bad game once a month, we can keep that at that level and then have the patrons vote for that for the coming month. And I actually want to talk about SimCity 2013 in a few minutes. Since I'm all alone here today, I figured this would be a good chance for me to get out the rant that I have on it. In terms of what's going to be happening this week, I'm going to be posting the VIP version of my chat with Cliff Harris and Jake Brigette. That will probably be going up, I'm going to say, tomorrow or late Sunday night. And that'll be the ad-free version. And then I'll be posting the public version probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm still going to see how things go. Also, very good news, I've been talking with Ramin again, who we had our live discussion about loot box design and the recorded one the other day. We're going to try to get together and do another live show we're thinking sometime in the middle of this week coming up. And we'll probably also record something for right after the holiday season. But once I hear more from Ramin regarding that, I'll let you guys know in an announcement video. Now, in terms of news that's been going on this week, one thing that did pop up, I think, from Polygon is that another regulator came out saying that loot boxes are not considered gambling. And let me grab the right link there. This is from New Zealand, from the Gambling Compliance Office there. They feel that it does not meet the legal definition of gambling because you are not gambling for real money or real money value. But as we've talked about before, that is going to be a very interesting discussion, especially if more regulations are being argued in the United States. And still no word yet on when EA will once again add back in the microtransactions to Battlefront 2. I'm curious to see what people are thinking in terms of playing the game without having that option. Now, one thing that I'm kind of excited about that El Gordo was telling me is that the Monster Hunter World Beta, which last week was meant for the PS Plus subscribers only, is going to be coming for everyone. And I believe that's going to happen in the next few days. And yes, I did hear about that as well. If you're not watching the chat, Crytek is suing Star Citizen in a very weird turn there. I'm seeing if I can pull double duty, trying to pull up all the information regarding the demo and Crytek at the same time. And Crytek, of course, they are the makers of, oh my goodness, I forget the name of that. They make, of course, the Cry engine, but I'm trying to remember the actual name of the game that they also do, which I think may just be Cry something. I know they didn't do Far Cry, but let's see what's going on. Create 2 unique games. So they were moving off of the Cry Engine 3. So they're saying that even though they moved off of using CryEngine in favor of Lumberyard from Amazon, Crytek is saying that they're still using parts of the CryEngine in that game. And let's see. And then they're also saying that CryEngine itself is a part of Lumberyard to make things even more confusing. Crisis, thank you. There's too many games with Crisis and Far Cry in them. But let's see. Yep, so right now the last update was December 15th, and it looks like they are going to be going to court. And wow, I didn't think Monster Hunter World is coming out so soon, but the release date is going to be set for next month, January 26th. And wow. And let me see if I can find information on the beta or on the demo. Let me see. Anything going on here? There's, of course, the paid one. I believe it's starting next week. Yeah, exactly. El Gordo, that Lumberyard is using parts of Amazon's internet code. And it is certainly going to be very tricky to see what happens, especially with everything else surrounding the game. I know there's also been discussions regarding a backer who donated, I think, $2,600 or $26,000. Let me see. Here is $25,000 refund that they're still trying to get that, oh my goodness, process. That is insane to think about that. Yeah, he pressed a refund more than $24,000 from the team, and he still not received it. And it's always very tricky when we're dealing with money along those lines. And the throwing the added fuel to the fire with the CryEngine and now Lumberyard is going to make things even harder to deal with. And the game is still nowhere to be seen in terms of being anywhere close to coming out of alpha. I think it's still in alpha, right? I reached out to my friend Brian from Space Game Junkie because I would love to talk to him about his thoughts, but I have not heard anything back, and I'm assuming I'm not going to be hearing anything from most people for the next 2 weeks. So I think we're officially in the holiday season here in the United States. In terms of some other things that have been going on, I also, like I said, I started recording the SimCity 2013. Let's see if there's anything else happening in news. Oh, in more news about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, the Xbox One and Xbox One X versions of the game were released this past week, and a lot of people are very upset considering the quality of the game and the fact that it's being released on a console while still in early access. And of course, we talked about last week with the fact that it won a Game of the Year award, which I found that to be very suspect, that the game is still not out and it's winning awards. Now, at least it's not being released for $60 on Xbox One. That would probably cause a lot of very unhappy people. But the fact that it's gotten a console release and it's still not out yet is very troubling. And the fact that it's also out on disc, that I think is a very big mistake on Microsoft and the developer's part. Because as we've talked about, when you're on disc, you have to be very careful with what version you're giving people, because you can't assume that everyone has reliable internet. Now, of course, with a game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, it's being released as multiplayer first. I highly doubt there's going to be a single-player campaign to that game in the foreseeable future. But there are a lot of people who are going to buy that game, and I think they're going to be very disappointed with what they're seeing graphics-wise. Oh yeah, I know about that too. I can't get the game to run on my computer. I can see my computer starting to smoke in the corner of my eye when I try to load it up. Especially the first 5 minutes when you start trying to get onto the land, the entire world is just stuttering and staggering like that. And that's not good when there's 99 other people trying to hunt me down at the same time. But you would think that a game like this would be further along in its development and optimization before it gets a console release. But again, it seems like a lot of people are trying to jump on this bandwagon as quickly as they can. And I can tell you right now, while I'm still doing my Game of the Year list, I think we're doing number 8 on Monday or Tuesday, it's not going to be on there. Especially considering the fact that I've not been able to play it at all. But again, I'm going to be very interested to see how that game develops. Because we've seen, with H1Z1, that was the last attempt to try and make this its own esport. And I'm just not sure if PlayerUnknown is going to get to that point. Yeah, I know. And early access in of itself is its own tricky matter. And what it means for the future remains to be seen. Now, speaking of which, I know that Auction Not Included just got another minor update before the team goes on holiday break. And that game's been in development now for, I think, at least a year, maybe a little bit more than that. Now, in terms of some other games, speaking about H1Z1, it has a free week deal, I guess, to try to get people into it before they all focus on PUBG. Oh, here's one game that a lot of my friends have been telling about that I've been trying to get a press key for. They Are Billions. I'm pretty sure, El Gore, you probably linked me to this one a few months ago as well. But it's kind of a roguelike meets real-time strategy game where you're trying to build a colony under the threat of zombie hordes trying to get you. And of course, for added bonus, it all takes place in a steampunk universe. I've also been trying to get in touch with the developer of, Sky City Derelicts? We've been trying to get in touch regarding doing a live cast, doing a recorded cast, and we've just not had that much luck in terms of time. I think he's another 5 to 8 hours ahead of me. So we're trying to get things going along those lines, but we're going to see if we can do something before the holidays or maybe schedule something for after. Everything sounds like Fortnite and PUBG these days. Let's see. What else is happening in terms of news? Oh, has anyone heard of the game Gorgoa? Because I've been seeing some people on my Twitter feed mentioning it. I'll see if I can maybe get in touch with the developer regarding that. But Steampunk Fortnite, that's probably going to be a genre in the coming year. Who knows? But I also had a chance to play 9 Parchments this week. I got a press key for the game Son of Scoregasm. And I'm going to try and get a recording of that maybe either Monday night or Tuesday. But I'm also going to be playing the return or a second look at the Shrouded Isle and Freaky Awesome, which both received major updates over the last few weeks. And I want to do another critical thought about that kind of redemption play or completely changing a game after release, so I don't want to get into it too much here. Let's see, what else do we have? I've been trying to keep an eye out for any games. Oh, I hope not, Mike. We've seen a few of those over the last few weeks. And again, I still have that key to House Party if I want to activate that and open up Pandora's box along those lines. Although that could certainly be a game of ill repute for January if I want to make it that. Who knows? But again, I'm going to take a tally of how many games. Yeah, there's that game too. And I heard more about that Mount Your Friends games. Oh man, we're going to get in trouble with YouTube, I think, with all these mentions right now. But before I get completely off track, for those of you watching this, either live or recorded, if there are any underlook or games that were missed that I haven't had a chance to play for 2017 from the indie or AA or AAA space, let me know, because I'm trying to do one last roundup before we, of course, ring in the new year. And as a great incidentally there, Sunday or the following Sunday is going to be December 31st. So if Rob is feeling well, we'll be having, I guess, a end of the year spectacular for there. Oh yeah, of course, next week we're going to have the winter sale, which means more games for me to take a look at. Speaking of which, I've been seeing South Park, the latest one, Fractured Butthole, is actually on sale. And that is kind of disconcerting there, that another AAA game has gone on deep sale and hasn't even been 6 months. Let me see if I can find the listing. Not from CD Keys, of course. That is its own trouble right there. Oh, and I just saw on Select Deals that they put the Disney Infinity figures for Star Wars. They're down to $1. Oh my god. The starter packs are $2 and the figures are $1. So I'm afraid to say that Star Wars, or I'm sorry, Lego Dimensions and Disney Infinity aren't probably doing so well, and it sounds like the Toys Alike market may be busting, at least for them. Let me see. Oh, there's that Steins Gate. I think Elkoda, you were talking about the complete series on DVD is on sale. Nier Automata is on sale. Here it is. Best Buy is offering us the South Park game for $24, but I guess you have to be part of their gamer club for that. Does it have loot boxes? Yep, that's another big news. Disney bought Fox. Anything the alien queen gives birth to now counts as a princess. I'm sure we're going to be getting a Avengers-style team-up between the alien queen, Jasmine, Elsa, and maybe Princess Jasmine. Maybe that'll be the next movie. That'll be the next Marvel movie after Infinity Wars. Oh my goodness. I think they bought for like $57 billion or something like that. Oh, and they're even selling Call of Duty World War II for sale for $32. Wow. Again, there is a lot we need to unpack there. And you missed my talk with Bill Gardner this past week. We did spend some time talking about the state of the game industry and what those prices mean. Speaking about game prices, I've been again trying to find more mobile games to take a look at. And a developer sent me a message on Twitter regarding their game. And let me pull that up real fast. Here it is. The game was Dragon's Watch, which I thought I tried it out, and it still seems like it's very much built around gacha design. At some point, maybe we'll do a critical thought about that, a little bit more on gacha based design. Now I even try recording it with my smartphone and get that working. Oh man. But it's definitely the whole pricing scheme when it comes to video games, especially with the mobile state of things, is certainly in flux. And I just don't know where things are going to end regarding that. In terms of what we're going to see, are we going to see more higher quality or higher price mobile games? Or is everything going to continue dropping down to try and meet that? Because I know a lot of developers aren't too happy regarding that, and I am definitely in that boat. But it's certainly difficult as a consumer to try and spend your money on all these games. Let me see here. Yeah. I would say that as well, Mike, but I don't want to get in too much trouble. And unfortunately, without having Rob here, I don't have anyone to give me the breaks to take a sip. So unfortunately, we're just going to have that little extra dead time while I refresh my throat. But it's certainly not getting any easier. Oh, hey, Getter. Yeah. And if until we get official confirmation regarding loot boxes, it's not going to get any easier. I was also thinking about maybe recording some Fire Emblem Heroes, because I think that's another really great game in terms of gacha design, and it's also one of the few that show percentage drops, because that is a big deal. Oh, and Getter, since I don't know if you just came on or not, Rob unfortunately won't be able to make it to the Grim Dawn play tonight, so I think I may just do my hardcore run tonight in lieu of tomorrow. But the whole deal with pricing video games, it's certainly not getting any easier. I mean, as we've said before, it's getting harder and harder to put a actual price on your game when everyone else is selling it for $10, $15, or you're seeing AAA games drop down in value as well. I would love if anyone can get a hold of Jeff Vogue from Spireweb Software. I would love to talk to him about it. I've sent him emails in the past and he hasn't responded to any of mine. But I'm going to be doing a critical thought or a critical series in a few days, trying to break down the essential elements of RPG design. I would also love to talk to him about that, because if you don't know who Jeff Vogue is of Spireweb Software, he's been basically carving out the niche of old school RPG design for over 20 years. Each one of his games are explicitly designed around the Baldur's Gate and that era of RPG, and they have dozens, and I do mean dozens of hours of RPG storytelling and tactical combat to play through. And while his games are certainly niche driven, if you fall into that niche, you are going to have so many hours of enjoyment from that RPG side of things. I'm also going to try... Oh yeah, that's right. He's also working on remaking... Which one is it? Is it Avernum? Or, oh my goodness. My memory is bad enough when it comes to mainstream games, let alone niche RPGs. Speaking about niche-driven RPGs, I've been getting updates regarding Zombicide, the game from Soldak Entertainment. He is still working on that. And I kind of wish that it was in a better state at launch, because I love the idea of his games, but they just don't have the polish, I think, for a mainstream. Let's see. What is happening with Spireweb? Here it is. Wow, that's just a hard name. Avernum 3. Don't try and say that fast, folks. Is being remade. I know that's actually another very interesting topic regarding remaking his older games, which is weird because a lot of his older, like the style of his games don't really change all that much. Like, I doubt we're going to be seeing an Unreal 4 Gene Forge game in the coming future. Yeah. I know Zombicide was a very interesting game, but to finish my thought with Avernome 3, like it's weird to see like the remake. So I know that he's had good luck with those games in the past in terms of remaking them. So there's definitely a market for it. He's still, I'm just reading his thoughts on Persona 5. Oh man, I need to. If I ever get Jeff on, I need to get his thoughts on JRPG design. That's probably 3 hours of talking right there. But to switch gears for a second with Zombicide, we played that way back at launch, and there have been a steady number of patches and such. Let me see. The last patch was for November. They're up to patch version 0.106. And I think there's also an expansion in the works for it as well. And I really loved Drock's Operative. And I was hoping to get more of that with Zombicide, and just did not do it. Retro games. Are you talking about modern retro games like Shovel Knight and the slew of indie games, or are you talking about like actually playing old school games like NES, SNES, DOS, and the like? But let me quickly look at this. Wow, the Zombicide expansion is actually coming out this. Holy crap! It's actually coming out tomorrow, December 18th. Wow, that really snuck up on me. Let's see. Play as the Bard class. Control town defense, new monsters, many more quests. Oh boy, maybe I have to get in touch with what was his name? Ah, nuts. Now I forgot his name too. Was it Steve? Yeah. Oh, old NES. I don't have a NES available, sadly, Mike. Maybe if we can ever get like a legitimate emulator. I would. Seaman Peeler, thank you, Getter. I would love to do more like retro-based games. As a great coincidence, I've been watching the Mexican Runner, speedrunner, as well as he's been playing all the old NES games, trying to complete them. I think he's up to like 600 or 550 of like 750 NES games. I would love to do something like that, but I would need at least I would need to have a clone, I think, to have all the time for that. Oh, maybe we could do like a SNES run. Play every SNES game in order. But retro gaming is so interesting like that. Especially, like, it's always weird going back to those old games. Like, I would love, honestly, to play them. I know. I watched his speedrun of Battletoads, which it still shocks me that someone was able to beat that game in like 30 minutes. Maybe. I don't know if he would be interested. I guess as a funny point, I've always had trouble getting in touch with people who aren't game developers for these casts. Like, I sent one to Graham Pooh Bear, and unfortunately he never got back to me. Maybe I'll send him something else. But yeah, I would love to talk to him about all the games he's played with the NES era. I watched him play the Three Stooges and Fester's Quest, and I am still amazed that someone was able to beat those games. Also, he apparently beat Monopoly and Jeopardy, which I didn't think was possible. Oh yeah. I still have a few of my PS2 games. I would love, like I had as one of the goals on Patreon to look at classic games using the PlayStation, whatever their service is, their streaming service of old school games, because I would love to do a Let's Play of God Hand or Devil May Cry 3, which I know before Elgato brings up in chat that they're doing an HD remake of Devil May Cry 3 for later in, I think, 2018. And if that is at the right price, or if I can get a key for that, I would love to play that game again and just really get into it. Yeah. And speedrunning in of itself, I mean, my career, we had a epic rise and fall I don't know, maybe I'll try something with Cuphead now that the patch is done. Because I know that patch just really screwed up a lot of people in terms of their speedruns. Let me see, anything else here? Yep, getting back to Getter's point from a few minutes ago, with Zombicide, it's very tricky with those kinds of games. It reminds me a lot of what they've done. It's like kind of the difference between Zombicide and XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. With Zombicide, they've been going for a lot of incremental updates, adding in new quests, new enemy types, new weapons, and while that certainly makes the game bigger, it doesn't make it deeper. While War of the Chosen, or of course by extension, Enemy Within, Firaxis went for, I just got a message from another friend of mine for doing it, and he can't make it. Maybe some other time we can have him on. But getting back to the topic, with something like Enemy Within and War of the Chosen, Firaxis went through and they just completely gut their game to add more to it. It's why I really loved War of the Chosen and Enemy Within from a mechanic standpoint. And it's kind of weird to talk about those games because from the outside, you don't necessarily see them as being, these grand changes. Like if you were to show someone like brand new War of the Chosen versus XCOM 2, they probably wouldn't say that all that much was added in. But under the surface, so much was done that it's just really impressive. And Agora was saying it will cost $30 for the pack. Here's hoping I get a press key. I put in a press request for Resident Evil 7, which my hopes are lessening as the days go by. But I would love to do a Let's Play of that, because Bill and I were talking about that neither of us had a chance to play that. No, I have not had a chance to try cardboard VR yet. As I've said before, I am just not the VR guy. My friend Ken, maybe I can get him on for an end of the year podcast. We'll see. He is the VR, again, evangelist. He's got every piece of it that I know is out there. Yeah, that is true. We've seen a lot more in terms of mechanic updates to indie games, especially when we look at games like Brigador, Renowned Explorer, Shroud Isle, Skyshine's Bedlam, that over the months after their release, we saw some massive changes to their mechanic structure. I know Stardew Valley got at least a minor update like that when they did a big patch, I think earlier in 2017, where they added in the ability to have different starting points for your farm. And again, that kind of stuff, it doesn't sound all that impressive, but when you're adding mechanic changes to your game, it's very tricky to do that right without just breaking things that were already fixed to begin with. And it's why we were talking about this on our Discord channel, that this idea of redemption acts for independent games is just very unusual like that, where you'll see a massive change, but it's kind of hard to tell. Like, you have no idea if that's going to make your game work or not, especially if the game has already been released. Yeah, I know. I agree with you on that, Getter. They have some, like, what we're talking about, for those of you watching this who don't know, Soldak Entertainment have been making ARPGs on now for, I think, over a decade. And they have made some very deep ARPGs, but they're just not marketable, I think. They use very basic graphics. They're very esoteric in terms of trying to learn them. And they just lack like what we see in terms of the mainstream approach or the accessibility approach as stuff like Diablo 3, Grim Dawn, Path of Exile. I did send Wolfson a message. I did not hear anything back from them, sadly, either. Maybe somebody please remind me of all the developers I've spoken to, and I'll try to send them a follow-up in the new year. But that's kind of the issue with Soldak. Ooh. Wow, my voice just completely died on me there. I think it's going to die me even more in the coming minutes. 1 second. Woo. But when it comes to marketing like Solex games, they're just a really tough sell. And Zombicide was one that a lot of us was really looking forward to because it was the first one that was actually released on Steam and on early access. So I was hoping this would be his chance to really go big with that. And again, from a design standpoint, it's interesting, but from a marketing standpoint, it isn't. Yeah, I know. And it's just very hard to build a game like that, especially build one that's marketable. I know Rob and I were kind of teasing around that discussion about the difference between making a video game that you want versus making a video game that's marketable. And I do not want to have that talk now, especially when it's just me here. And for those of you who are new, again, normally we have a co-host right up there to play off of. I know it's kind of weird just listening to me all this time. Some scotch will clear that up. Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point, Getter, about take the math and numbers away and just go with verbs and adjectives to try their games. Because what we're talking about, again, his games, Seaman Peeler, they are very math heavy. These are, like, it reminds me a lot of Grim Dawn, but even more so with how much you have to really dig into the numbers to figure out what you're working with and how to grow. And his games, they literally give you complete freedom to create whatever class you want, and it can get crazy like that. I am very sure that Steven hasn't gone through every one of his class combinations. There's just too much there. So I'm very sure that there are completely overpowered broken classes in his games, but that's the fun of them, trying to figure them out. Like, his games are those that you can literally say, I want to build a tanky warrior who's also a fire throwing mage necromancer. The book is going all right. I'm up to entry 17 of 20. And I figure with this week wrapping up with my temporary work, that's going to give me a chance to finish the last few entries, and then start to send out like the draft and see what people think about it. So it has been coming along. It's just been slow with everything else that's going on. Yeah. And that is another really good point there, Getter, regarding the difference between, as we said before, between completely unfiltered freedom or randomization versus some level of control. When you have 100% freedom, it's just too overwhelming in some cases to make anything that matters. It's kind of why it's such a big deal when you're playing an ARPG like Diablo or Grim Dawn, and it's the difference between getting a new piece of gear versus getting a new skill. When you get a new piece of gear, it doesn't change what you're actually doing. Yes, you're going to hit harder, or your weapon has a shinier graphic to it, but it's not the same as getting a new skill or a new piece of utility. Like, for instance, when we're playing Titan Quest and of course Grim Dawn, when I add a new skill to my character, that changes everything. We saw that last week when I was playing with Rob, when I was building the Nightblade up, and once we maxed out that Death Chill aura, everything started to come into play there. And when you have that kind of stuff, it just does a lot. But when I'm getting stuff, and this goes back to what we were saying with passives in open world games, getting +5, run speed or +3 increased damage, it's not really doing all that much. Yep. And, I guess here's a question for you guys watching. Are there any games that are 100% pure freedom that manage to hook you? I guess I would argue that Dwarf Fortress could be an example of that, where everything and anything can happen. But it still is rigidly defined by the rule set and what you're able to order the dwarves. It's also why I'm just not a fan of a lot of the open world survival games, where they're just trying to give you everything, but none of it really matters. Like, I talked about this before with something like Don't Starve. In Don't Starve, while the world and the biomes are completely randomly and procedurally set, you would think that would offer you complete freedom. But the problem is that your actual way to play that game is fixed based on finding the tiers of goods. And it goes also back to something like Zombicide, wherein even though you have complete freedom to build your characters and build your parties, you're still going to be doing the same thing at the start, and your path is still largely locked in terms of what your objectives are. And then it's just about getting bogged down in those numbers. Or in Don't Starve, getting bogged down in the set path through. Yeah. And Dwarf Fortress also has that narrative aspect of watching the dwarves grow and do their own thing. Yeah, like, it's also why good game design usually has some level of restriction, some way to lock the player or fine-tune it to get a specific experience going. Now, speaking of which, I know we are 41 minutes in, and I know that just listening to myself talk for this amount of time can be a little tough on the ear, so we'll probably wrap things up in the next few minutes. But I do want to get this quick rant out regarding SimCity 2013. And for Monday, I will be posting my game of ill repute on it. But SimCity 2013 was heavily touted as to be the successor of the SimCity franchise. And one of the things I found almost immediately is that the simulation model for that game is lacking. Traffic doesn't seem to do anything. It's just kept very bare bones. And when you're playing a simulation style game like that, you need a good simulation model. And I'll probably do a critical thought on it to expand, but the sim model for city builders is essentially how the world responds to the agents or the transfer of services and goods around. For those of you who've played the old school Impression era city builders, the simulation model would be the walker system, where you saw, like the person carrying a pot of water, and every house they pass got their water service. Now again, that's not realistic, but it's a way of the simulation model to abstract the nature of transferring water or transferring goods. And if you want a really good example of that power, you can look at City Skylines, which they do a really good job of modeling traffic, the flow of goods, and how things work based on the road model. But when you have a simulation like that, if you don't have a good simulation model to build your city on, then you're just plopping buildings down and it's just working like magic. It's also why I don't consider the Anno series, at least some of the modern ones, to be considered true city builders. Because I can place a factory down on an island way over there, and my services will still reach, 3 other islands in the area. They used to do so with logistics, and I think it was Anno, oh wow, I don't even remember which Anno it was. 20, they all are named after, or they all have 9 when you add up their numbers, so I don't remember the last one. But they used to have like a whole logistics system of transferring goods between your islands and your various cities, which was downplayed in 2205 in favor of an open structure. And I would love to see that open structure with an actual simulation model on top of it, but that would be too big for right now. But like I said, with it being 45 minutes in and my voice is starting to die on me, I think we'll wrap up this week's Game Wisdom Live. If you haven't had a chance, the grab bag voting will be going up. I've added in a new goal reward for patreon.com/gwbeister. If you're able to support things this month, I would really appreciate it. Even if we can get back to our previous tier of $100 would be great, or if those previous patrons will return. But otherwise, for those of you watching this live, I will be back later tonight, probably around 9:30 for Grim Dawn. And we'll be back tomorrow with the Game of Ill Repute and more streaming. Hopefully Rob will be feeling well enough for next Sunday so that I'll actually have someone to talk to up there. And as I said, with the live talk with Ramin, once we get confirmation regarding the day this week, I will post an announcement video. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in. And again, these discussions will be going up early and ad-free for the Patreons who donate at least $5 or more. And if you like, be sure to check out the Patreon. Otherwise, the ad and normal version will be going up in a few days, probably Tuesday. But until later tonight, have a great evening. Thanks again for coming out. And I'll be sure to be hopefully having my voice back up later. Until then, talk to you then.